Hello Angela Anaconda fans and new people finding my channel. To those of you who've never seen one of my videos before, I'm Amazon Kane. I'm a writer. I'm obsessed with Angela Anaconda. I do rewatch videos. My ultimate goal is to run an official reboot of the series, and I just released animation showing you what my idea of a reboot would look like. What we did was a revamp of Angela's original theme song. What I wanted to do tonight was a creative breakdown of that new theme song and talk about the creative decisions. Since I wrote and directed it, I'm coming at it from a storytelling perspective. If you're looking for more of a technical point of view, definitely follow the artist's work. Everybody's credited in the video, and they're all fantastic. You'll hear me criticize elements of the original show. It doesn't mean I hate anybody involved who worked on it. Obviously, all the original artists were hardworking. We had one of the original artists work on the animation with us. Fantastic. But Angela Anaconda is a show that was criticized for many years, and I want to acknowledge the flaws of the show while really showcasing the best parts of the show, because a lot of that tends to get overlooked. I wanted to talk about the first thing about this that a lot of people pointed out. There is no singing in the revamped theme song, and the reason for that, there's a saying, if you want to learn music, study storytelling, and if you want to learn storytelling, study music, which is very much true. The idea of a theme song is supposed to tell you in 30 seconds what that show's about. And I couldn't do anything with the original lyrics. I actually like a lot of them, but it's the last third where you lose me. The ending's very, very negative and very much takes the focus away from Angela. I couldn't think of anything better to replace those lyrics that wouldn't sound cheesy, so I just took them out. With the original theme song, you don't get a good sense as to why you should root for Angela over Nanette, so that was something we aimed to do in the reboot. And the theme song had such a nice melody. The melody did tell you the story of the show very, very well. It has a really clear beginning, middle, and end. It's small, it's quirky, it's offbeat. It really gives you the tone of the show as well. It's imaginative, it's weird, it's creative. It's the kind of melody you could hear a child actually playing at a school concert. It's very simple but very distinctive, much like Angela's design. There's a timelessness to the theme song, at least the melody, that I really, really like. You could tell me that was written in the 30s, you could tell me it was written in the 50s, you could tell me it was written 2 months ago, and I'd believe you. I found that the story really worked better without the lyrics, particularly in the last third. I'll tell you that the creator of the original show, Joanna Ferrone, she set out to write about someone dealing with inequality, whereas I set out to write about somebody dealing with bullying. And the focus is very different in the two theme songs. The biggest thing that I wanted to do was keep the focus on Angela herself. You'll notice in the original theme song that she mentions 3 times how much she hates Nanette, and while I do find that funny, it really does take the focus away from the star of the show, Angela Anaconda. So I wanted to keep the focus back on her and really show off the visuals, because the visuals were also such a distinct part of the show, and a tough style to adapt. I wanted to keep the focus on the visuals and not so much on the lyrics. I found the story worked so much better by removing them. And since the theme song's lyrics is one that is widely criticized, now that the 2 elements that have been criticized the most have been taken out, people are asking me where they are. The internet cannot make up its mind. I did expect that reaction. But still. One thing I'm sure a lot of people will notice are changes to the characters. Some a lot more than others. And I knew I wanted from the get-go that the characters would have realistic skin tones, and the reason being it would help the color pop a lot more, they would look more alive, more expressive, and therefore more identifiable. You'll notice that the proportions are a lot more evened out too than they were the first time around. As a big criticism of the art style in the past was that the characters ended up looking more like corpses with gray skin and very, very thin limbs. So I wanted them to look cute, but still like photographs or paper dolls. Hence, they are still stylized, but in a way that's brighter, more expressive, and a little more even. With Angela Anaconda, you'll notice that aside from skin tone and proportion changes, that nothing else did change. And part of that's because her design is so original and so memorable and so distinctive and so familiar. And part of that's just because it fits her character really, really well. The middle class every girl. She's got this cute awkwardness to her. She's in a very simple, very plain, but very colorful and distinctive outfit. There's an element of timelessness with her. I looked like that 20 years ago, but even today I still see girls who look like her, and I still see fashion like that. I still see girls dressed like her. So I would believe that a kid could exist like that 20 years ago, but also today. Same with Gordy Reinhardt. Those two designs especially had an element of, I could see someone who looked like that in the past, I can see someone who looks like that now, and still be believable. Some characters had some subtle updates. You'll notice all the textures were updated. With actual designs, there were some subtle updates with Nanette in January. Nanette mostly, a lot of it was character based. The curls are more of a modern style, but the shape is still very similar to what it was the first time. And I loved Nanette's design. I think it's hilarious. I really like the silliness and the exaggeration of that character design. Every little thing about that design tells you who that character is. She's this doll-like, artificially perfect, holier-than-thou person. I love the prep school outfit. It is so funny. And you'll notice I actually put a gold Eiffel Tower on it to make it a little more distinctive. But I love the implication that she could go to private school, but she won't. She's gonna grace the public school with her presence. January, the only thing I really changed about her was her hair and the shoe design, because I couldn't tell what they were originally. I didn't know what shape and texture her hair was supposed to have, so I gave it something a little more modern. Carlene's design, just adorable. Yeah, I know it's a little old-fashioned, but it's still very distinctive. It's still memorable. And it fits so well with Nanette and what she stands for, because they're all these very ridiculous characters, and the idea behind them is, look at how silly and backwards their values are. But their designs are also so creative and have very distinctive shapes and colors and silhouettes. So aside from updating textures that I couldn't tell what they were originally, those were pretty much kept the same. And they're just really great designs. Even with the skin tone, it did add something to Nanette's character. You'll notice on her face she's a more airbrushed, as if she's that kid coming to school with a full face of makeup, which, let's be honest, unfortunately happens now. And that adds something to the character with what we can do with the skin tone. It definitely adds to this doll-like thing she's got going on, the pageant girl thing, this somebody who's actively trying to make herself seem better than everybody else. But there's a ridiculousness that comes with it. And I love that. And you'll notice with Angela's friends, Johnny and Gina were the ones that changed the most. Johnny got a little more modernized, Gina especially did. And the big reason is they were less developed characters than the others. They weren't as utilized. So, especially Gina. Johnny, he gets a little more modern because his design was outdated. It looked very 1950s, 1960s. And Gina, the same thing. Her design very much had this 1960s thing going on. I know people had differing opinions on Gina because she was changed the most, because there wasn't a ton with her character. And honestly, I hate that character. She's constantly screwing people over for food, and she's such a one-dimensional stereotype with no redeeming qualities. And everything we're supposed to like about her is very much informed and not shown. So with Gina specifically, what I wanted to do was create essentially a character, a likable character. And I went into it with somebody that all the characters, Angela, Gordy, Johnny, they all have something going on in their lives that they struggle with, but you don't really get that with Gina. So I thought, okay, this is somebody who's gonna be somebody who's more the girly girl and a lot less sure of herself than she was the first time. The idea that I liked her being the girly girl of the group because you have Angela as the tomboy, and Gordy's a feminine boy, and Johnny's a masculine boy, so why not have Gina be the feminine girl of that group to really balance that all out? I also liked the idea that the girly girl would be in pants and the tomboy would be in the dress, just to switch things up. The original had a subtle gender nonconformity. I wanted to keep that going. For the actual animation, one of the original artists, Ed Chi, amazing guy, he was a prop designer on the original show. He's the person who did the storyboards and the animatic for this, which is essentially the shot layout. I wrote an outline, a very quick outline of the story, and he drew all the little pictures and the camera motions, essentially the blueprint of what it's going to look like. It took him 3 days, and you'll notice from the animatic to the original final product, not a whole ton has changed. Maybe a few details here and there, but overall it's really solid. For the actual animation itself, what the show did the first time, they used real photographs and cutouts that are flat, but they were animated with 3D software. The first time they used a software called Houdini. And what we did to look for inspiration, for the longest time we thought Angela was going to be a 2D show, that it should be in 2D. But it's actually 3D that looks flat. We used South Park as a reference because that's another cutout show that also looks flat. While it wasn't the actual inspiration, they're both descended from a show called Monty Python, since they had their very distinctive cutout animated cartoons there too. The inspiration for Angela Anaconda was a ad campaign, Mr. Jenkins, that was cutouts and all that really creative stuff. But it is also descended from Monty Python. Maybe Mr. Jenkins was. But since South Park, a modern show, has that, we decided to do the same thing. And South Park used Maya to get their effect. That's what we did. The effects were done in After Effects. The biggest challenges that I'll say right now of bringing this art style to life, the two things that were particularly tough to get right were the characters' skin tones and the Sharknado and the Revenge Fantasy. The Revenge Fantasy was the last thing we did because it was much more involved, much more imaginative, and much more technically involved than the rest of it. Since the characters had gray skin the first time, it was a challenge to get it consistent and to get something that looked more natural. It took several tries. There was quite a bit of trial and error with it. But I'd say we pulled it off pretty well. And if you look, the new theme song does have a ton of callbacks to the original. You've got Angela at the piano, introducing her friends to you, the reveal of Nanette. Ah, no, it's Ninny Poo. Then you have Angela and King at the very end. But there are refinements. Like I said, the theme song is supposed to visually give you a clue in 30 seconds of what an episode of Angela Anaconda would be like. And the biggest changes from the original to this I can sum up with is the characters are more active. Nanette is actively mean to Angela by throwing the tomato. January and Carlene are actively mocking her and enjoying her pain. Automatically, the Revenge Fantasy is more justified. A big criticism of the original show was that Angela's antagonists were not always bad enough to deserve the Revenge Fantasy. And I agree with that. So here we automatically worked to make it more justified. Like I said, the focus of the show was different. Since I make it clear that this is about someone dealing with bullying and not inequality, that focus does come out with the characters and their actions. Angela herself is more proactive about solving her problem by taking out a lamp as a makeshift spotlight. and her friends are a lot more supportive by actively adjusting the stage to help her out. The most important shot from the character standpoint, I would call this one, where Angela takes out the lamp with the light already on before the reveal of her friends. And I wanted that shot specifically to be like that because Angela, the star of the show, is going to keep going and take her small victories no matter what. She was going to solve her problem already, but then she has the support of her friends, the redeeming relationship, to make it even better. I really wanted it to come across that Angela already had a creative solution to pull herself out of her problem, but she had the support to do things even better than she imagined the first time. I really wanted to keep that focus on her, to show Angela as somebody that she was going to solve her problem, she was going to take her small victory, and she was going to keep moving forward, no matter what. And then she ended up finding that support to make things even better. That person who stood up for herself is always the kind of thing I saw in this character. That's always what I saw in this show. And that's what I really wanted to share with you. That's the part I really wanted to make clear to the audience. Why this is such a great character, why you should root for her, and why this is such a unique show. Essentially, I really loved that this character was always allowed to get angry. So, by making the efforts to justify her anger and to show her solving her problems and taking that small victory, but then having the heart behind it, that's the great thing about Angela Anaconda that should come back, and I want the audience to understand. Hope you like it just as much as we did, and see you when you see me.